everyone, it's Nina Collins from the Woolfer, and I'm here today with Uju Asika from London. Uju is a longtime Woolfer. She was a member of us when we were on Facebook, and she's Nigerian living in London and is the creator of a blog called Babes About Town. It's a family lifestyle and travel blog for families. She lives in London with her husband and two sons who are almost teenagers, 15 and 12 or so. And she has just written a book called Bringing Up Race, How to Raise a Child in a Prejudiced World, which is what we're mostly here to discuss, among other things. Hi, Uju, welcome.
Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah, really, really nice to have you. So before we talk about your book, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, how you, I don't know, you're from Nigeria, you went to NYU and got a master's in journalism. Can you tell us a little bit? You were born in Nigeria, right?
I was born in Nigeria, yeah. So I was born in Nigeria. Then I came to Britain, where I went to boarding school, which I write a little bit about in Bringing Up Race. And then we would go sort of back and forth. So I had very much a British and Nigerian upbringing. Then I did my master's at NYU, lived in New York for about 4 years. Actually, I didn't live in New York. I always say I live in New York, but I lived in North Jersey.
I think that counts. I think that counts, actually.
It still counts. But I worked in New York and I was very much, in the New York zone for about 4 years. Then I left, came back to London, then moved to Lagos, where I lived for a couple of years, came back to London when I was pregnant with my eldest, and have been here ever since. So yeah.
So a lot of bouncing around. And why did you create this blog? What was the motivation?
Yeah, I think when I came back, because I was pregnant, then I had my first child. And I think because of all the moving back and forth, I was a little bit lost with not much of a friends network around me. So my friends were kind of scattered all over the place. I didn't really have anyone around me who was my friend and who was having a baby at the same time. So I felt quite isolated. And then I didn't really know like what I could do with a baby. Like, could I go to a restaurant? Like, what could you do? Can I go to the theater?
Is your mom alive? Did you have like aunties and your mom to help you?
She was alive at the time. She isn't anymore, but she was in Nigeria. So, and then she wasn't able to come. Like when I had my baby, she was trying to get her visa, and that was a whole long thing. So she wasn't able to get her visa in time. Fortunately, my mother-in-law did come for like a few weeks. But a lot of that first phase was just me and my husband, like just figuring it out by ourselves. And
it's hard. It's really a time when you need support. It's a time when women make friends often, right, with other mothers in the same situation.
Exactly. So I started Babes About Town just thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have a website that would tell me what I could do with a baby or where I could go, and stuff that was parent friendly. That was my focus, because I thought there's a lot of stuff about, toddler groups and singing nursery rhymes, which is great. I was like, I want to do stuff that I enjoy. So I started Babes About Town. It was like, oh, you can take your baby to the theater or to a festival or to a rave, which is, the things.
It sounds like a really clever way to get to know a place, right? If you're kind of like new in an area and you don't have a lot of friends, it's like create a blog. It's actually a good,
it's a great way, to really sort of
it's
connect.
A great way to kind of, connect and meet people and feel like you're being useful. And so how long ago was it that you started that blog?
It's 11 years now. So I
call myself. Do you feel like is that kind of your like identity? That's your platform, you feel like, in London?
Yeah, in a way, it's like my third child. My youngest has really grown up with the blog because they used to feature on the blog a lot. Not so much now, but growing up, they were very much part of the story around Babes About Town. So yeah.
I know that I have that feeling a little bit about the Woolfer community. Not quite that it's my child, but often that it's like my sister or my mother, or plays different roles. It's definitely an appendage in a good way in my life. So let's talk about your books, Bringing Up Race. How did this come about?
Yes. So Bringing Up Race is a book that I never planned to write. Like, I had no intention of writing about race. I wasn't really thinking about it. I had a relative of mine said to me, oh, this would be a great topic for you to write on. And I just thought, no, like, why would I
Why?
write this? I'm not, because I just thought I'm not like a race academic. I'm not an expert. I never thought of myself writing a parenting book because a lot of parenting books, again, it's like parenting expert, which I don't think there is such a thing. I think you're just
Yeah.
a parent and you figure your way, you muddle your way through it, and people
Yeah.
have different approaches. But anyway, when I thought about really like bringing my own experience into it, so rather than coming at it as, research and theory, and there is a lot of research actually in the book, but coming at it from a storytelling perspective and talking about my own experiences as a Black mother raising kids in London, and also inviting other parents into the conversation. So like parents of different ethnicities, I thought actually this could be quite a powerful way of opening up conversations that need to be had.
Absolutely. It's so important, and now more than ever. And you must feel like it's good timing, hopefully, to publish the book. I mean, everywhere, but in America, it's certainly a book we really, really need. Who's your publisher here? I can't remember. I don't have a copy of the book with me because I'm in San Francisco right now.
Yeah, it's Source Books.
That's great. They're a great publishing house. And it's coming, it just came out this month, last month?
It's just come out this month in the States. So it came out in England in September. Published by Yellow Kite in England, so it's got a different cover, but I don't know if you can see behind.
Yeah, I can see both. It's great. It looks terrific. So can you share with us some of your insights or tips? I mean, a lot of members of our community have kids who are a little bit older, because as you know, we're a community for women over 40, although that doesn't mean people don't have young kids. And also we have members who have grandchildren. And I think we're all thinking about how to incorporate these ideas about awareness everywhere we go. And children are really the most important place to start, right? I mean, who else is more important but children and the future of tomorrow? So what are some of your thoughts about how we do this work?
Yeah, I think it's just so important. One thing I really recommend with parents is just to be proactive. As a parent, you can be very reactive when it comes to your kids, especially because parenting on its own is hard. There's so much, you're juggling all this stuff. And then you just react because your child will say something or do something. Yeah. And then you're like, oh no, I've not addressed this.
No, that is such a good point.
Huge topic. And so you really need to try and be proactive. And which is not to say that you're going to have it all figured out, not at all, but start with yourself, educate yourself as much as you can, but also you don't have to have all the answers when you're talking with your child about race. You can just be learning about stuff together. It's an opportunity for both of you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And just, I think though, by being proactive, kind of acknowledging from the start that it is an issue, because a lot of people, I think the way a lot of people are complicit is by not looking at it, right? So, and the whole kind of, I don't see color, we don't see color, and everyone sees color. And so just kind of naming the elephant in the room from day one and kind of being honest about it seems like a really, really important thing. And then of course, modeling, which is always really important, kind of your own behavior and processing your own behavior. What do you recommend to a parent who, I don't know, a white person who doesn't have any Black friends or many Black friends, right? I mean, common situations in England and America, you have people who live in God knows where, and they're very isolated. And what do you think those people should do?
Go get yourself some Black friends. No, I'm joking. No, but I mean, I do
buy Black books, Black art.
I think, go outside of your comfort zone. A lot of people, obviously, depending on your circumstances, situation, you might not be anywhere near a neighborhood that isn't filled with people who look like you. But, we live in a very, very open world. We've got the whole world at our fingertips, literally through the internet. You have access to books, you have access to movies, you have access to all these different stories. You can just bring them into your home and engage, and talk with your child about them as well. One of the things that a lot of parents tend to, maybe they'll get a book and it has children of different colors, and then they'll just read the book without mentioning the fact that the kids have different colors, and they'll think that this is enough. Actually, no, like, talk about the stuff, use it as an opportunity to say, oh, their skin tone is different from my skin tone, and just be very positive and open and natural so that you normalize the conversation.
Yeah, talk about different hair types and different eye features, all of it, body features. And so really being proactive is super key, right? Just not hiding from the issue. Exactly. Although I guess parents get confused, like with sex or drugs, right? Figuring out when to bring up these subjects and how proactive to be. And so I would imagine a lot of parents, in some ways, as a way to kind of avoid the subject because it's uncomfortable, maybe think, oh, it's not appropriate, or I don't need to bring these subjects up. And maybe that's what's starting to change in our society, that we're saying, no, everyone has to bring these up.
Exactly. I mean, you do have to be age appropriate, obviously, and use that as your advantage. I think that with children, one of the great things about kids is that they have really short attention spans, and that doesn't change. Like, my 15-year-old will listen to me for about 1 minute, and then I can see his eyes just glaze over. Use that as your advantage. Don't feel like you have to have, this big, heavy conversation about race and solve everything in one conversation. Now, you're going to have many conversations over the years. So just, start small, ask a question, share a little exchange, talk about something, and then maybe they'll come to you with questions later, or maybe you'll come up with some other questions yourself later, but don't feel like I have to do it all now and I have to say it all now. And when your child is really, really young, you don't have to sit down and be like, the civil rights.
Right, you don't have to give a big lecture on race.
Like a lecture, exactly. They're just, just talk about the things that they can see, ask them what they understand. You're learning about them as well as teaching them.
I think what's really tricky about this subject is that everyone comes to it from different places, right? So like in my own family, I'm half Black and half white, and my kid's dad was Black and I was white, sorry. And I had a Black grandmother I was very close to. So they grew up with kind of a mix, right? And I didn't really, perhaps I should have talked about race more. I didn't really feel like I needed to because it was part of their family. But then you'll get, like in the Woolfer community, I'll see women who really grew up, as we talked about, in very, very white environments, or very kind of suburban environments that are closed off, or obviously people who are, everyone is coming to it from a different place. So when you're writing a book like this, I'm curious, in your experience since it's been published, what has the reception been like? And have there been hard moments with the publication of this book? Like, have you felt disappointed by the audience? I mean, because there's not a monolithic audience, right? It's a very complicated topic, and you're trying to reach people who come to it from a million different perspectives.
Yeah, very good question. I mean, overall, it's been amazing, the response, like really positive. And I think, like you said, the timing of when the book came out has been great, because even when I was writing the book, I was writing it before everything that happened last summer, and the murder of George Floyd and all this, the big Black Lives Matter global uprising. I was writing it before that, and partly I was thinking, God, especially here in England, where people don't really want to talk about race, they don't want to talk about anything, but let alone race. So I was thinking, am I going to have to spend ages persuading people that this is an important topic, or that they need to talk about it? So actually, it's been really positive in terms of people wanting the information and wanting to have these discussions. But like you said, I've given talks where someone will just give a long question around something that is coming from such a place of privilege and, I would say ignorance. And then
I would imagine ignorance and microaggressions.
All these things.
People say crazy things.
And again, I'm just like, okay, breathe, which is something I advise parents to as well. Like, if your child says something, or your neighbor or whatever says something that's like really just like, where, you don't have to slam them instantly. Like, I'm not going to come at you and be like, you're wrong. I'm just like, okay, this person is just not quite as far along on their learning journey on this particular path. So, just have a little bit of grace and try and like nudge them a bit further along. Because you can't change people overnight. You just have to just try and educate when you can.
I love that. I think your use of the word grace is really right. I mean, we see this all the time in the Woolfer community also. I mean, women disagree and we come to things from different perspectives, and we are at different places along the road and different. I mean, I remember 6 months ago, we had a difficult conversation about the use of pronouns, and we ended up having a Google Zoom to talk about it, because not everyone, it's, if you're 60 years old or 50 years old, you see this differently than if you're 25 years old, and we have things that we have to learn. So, it's a very complicated balance of trying to educate people and trying to call them in and not call them out, and all this stuff. But I'm really impressed with you that you came up with the idea for this book, obviously before this became such a global phenomenon, newly, not that it hasn't always been a big issue in the world. But good for you. And do you see yourself as an educator now? I mean, I would think there's a lot of opportunity for you to go and talk to communities and young children and schools and parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm not someone, I don't see myself, I wouldn't necessarily come out like I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, but I am educating people, and I'm being invited to give talks and to sort of run workshops, whatever, around these issues. And I'm happy to, because like I said, I have my own lived experience, but also I've done so much research. And then when I was writing the book, it was very interesting. Like, I had so much knowledge within me that I wasn't aware of. So like, I have these sections in Bringing Up Race where it's called Talking Points. And it's basically like questions that I've had or questions that have come up from my community around race. And I answered those. And as I was writing it was just very, very natural. Like, I was like, oh, I know all this stuff. I didn't
You
have to
know
go
this,
off
you
and
were
like
more of an
research
expert than you
it.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you give
yeah.
us an example of some of those talking points?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Like, I gave a talking point on sort of the whole, like, what do I say to my child when you say Black Lives Matter, and my child goes, well, why don't all lives matter? And then I responded to that, just giving a little analogy of, I think in the book I use the analogy of, if you say save the whales, no one's going to come out and be like, no, save all the creatures. You understand that you're being specific and you're calling attention to a problem. So, and this is something that you can explain to a child. So
Yeah.
hopefully all the adults who are calling for all lives matter should be able to understand it. It's really quite simple. It's not as complicated as you think.
Yep. Yep. That's interesting that in the writing of the book, you discovered you were more of an expert than you thought. I mean, it makes sense. As a Black woman who's traveled all over the world and lived in all these different kinds of environments, you've observed a lot and received a lot and had to modulate and figure out your reaction to a lot, right? So it's a good opportunity. How do your kids feel about the book?
They're very proud, but proud in that kind of like, oh, well done, mum. Okay. Like, I'm going to play my video game now. Like, it's very.
My kids are. They could care less. I'm sure deep down, they're very proud, and they will talk about you.
So I think, your kids are always going to ground you, like, no matter what. I could meet Barack Obama tomorrow and they'd be like, yeah, that's great, mom. What's for dinner? Like, okay, yeah. So
yeah, I always say parenting is a very humbling experience, and particularly by the time you get to kids in there, like once you get to basically adulthood after they're 18, and you look back
right.
and can breathe a little, it's like, wow, we've gone through a lot at that point. It's humbling. I have 4 kids, and it's
Oh, you
amazing.
have 4. Wow, more power
Yeah.
to you, honestly.
Yeah, it's great. I have 3 girls and a boy. And my kids are interesting on the race stuff because they're mixed, and one of them looks particularly Black, 2 look very mixed, and 1 looks very white, but they very much identify with being Black. And it's also interesting, like, a couple of them only sleep with Black people, one of them only sleeps with white people. Like, it's kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if I should have talked about race more when they were growing up. Actually, my child, who mostly identifies with being Black, like the strongest, and is very kind of militant, she has criticized me for not talking about race enough when they were growing up. And so I do think that there was a part of me, a kind of privileged, complacent part of me, that kind of assumed everyone felt the way I did about everything, that I kind of wish I could do a little bit differently. I mean, that's the problem with parenting. I think you look back and it is so easy to see the things you might have done better.
Wow, completely. I think, that's what it is parenting is just so much trial and error. And
Yeah.
we're lucky if our kids grow up to be level-headed and just generally okay. So you do the best you can. And we're all learning and we're unlearning at the same time.
Yeah.
I didn't have, even when I was writing the book, I was like, oh gosh, I should have handled this. There's an incident that my son had when he was about 5, and I shared it in the book when he said something sort of quite bigoted, that sounded like bigotry. And I just instantly was like, oh my God. And I had this like panic response, which I'm like, if I had read my own book back then,
Mm.
I might have responded differently because I would have understood that, you don't have to freak out in that way. It
Right.
was,
And that he was just trying to learn.
yeah,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
just really was just 5 years old. He didn't know what he was saying really, or what he was doing, but it was just one of those things.
Right. Right. Well, you've done an amazing thing for the world by writing this book. I'm very happy for you. And will you come to America to talk about it at all? Probably not yet, I guess, because of COVID.
So I really hope so. It's yeah, it's been difficult launching a book in a pandemic. Has been a real challenge. I feel
Oh,
lucky that
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just thought we should do something with you. I don't know if you know this, but I'm on the board of the Brooklyn Public Library, and we do a lot of amazing programming at the library, and you would be a
wow,
great speaker for something. So I'm going to
yeah,
actually reach out to you and get you to do something with us. I mean, because the
okay,
great
brilliant.
one of the upsides of COVID is that we all have learned that all this Zoom programming, while I think we look forward to getting back in real life, there's something great about being able to do it on Zoom.
There is definitely. I mean, that's one thing I have to say. Okay, I feel lucky that I've been able to take advantage of technology and beam myself into all sorts of spaces that I might
Yeah.
not have had access to.
So
beforehand.
the main thing I'm thinking about right now with your book is the idea of proactivity, which I think is super important. Can you give us another takeaway, another tip from the book about how to raise a child in a prejudiced world?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned another thing, which was modeling. So definitely, I was saying to someone, I can't remember so many different things, but there's a saying that children don't remember what you say; they remember what you are. And so
Yeah.
it's this idea that you can talk and talk and talk until you're blue in the face. So while I advocate conversation, is so important, but what's really important is how you act, how you behave, how you engage with people
Yeah.
of different ethnicities. Do you have any friends in your circle of different ethnicities? A lot of
Yeah.
people don't. And
A
these are
lot of
people
people
who might
don't.
think
No,
themselves
and
as
how do you
liberal
treat the
and
person? How do you treat the person in the grocery store? How do you treat
exactly. How do you
exactly?
engage? Do you treat them like obviously this is a foreign a foreign entity, or are they just someone else in your life? And your child can see that and your child can pick up on that. So it's really important to also think about who you are and how you are, as well as what you
So
say.
completely true. And actually, that's a real argument for traveling because I think about when my kids were little and we traveled a lot and how you interact with people who are just completely different from you and who don't speak your language and who your kids are watching all the time. I mean, I think one thing we really know as parents is, I mean, I feel like they know me better than I know myself. Like I cannot say a word and they know what mood I'm in, right? They are
Yeah.
watching us very, very carefully. Um, so yeah, modeling. I agree. All right, everyone. So the tips from this wonderful book by Uju Asika, Bringing Up Race, how to raise a kind child in a prejudiced world. Two things to really think about are being proactive, so not being complacent, really taking the bull by the horns. And modeling. I mean, these are such basic, important values to think about with kids and really with everyone. I mean, even not having kids at home anymore, right? I'm always trying to think about like, am I behaving with integrity, right? That's the thing that I'm always kind of worried about. Am I being true to myself and true to my values and staying in my own lane? And so anyway, thank you very much, Uju. Really nice to see you.
Thank you. So nice
Good.
to be on here. I love the
Yeah.
Woolfer.